Welcome back from the break. You're watching NewsX and I'm Saudi Jindal. Justin Trudeau has stepped down as the Canadian Prime Minister and the leader of his Liberal Party of Canada, effectively ending his 9-year-old tenure as the Canadian Prime Minister. He now remains caretaker Prime Minister till his successor is chosen. This move comes amid rising dissent against him within his party. The political crisis of Trudeau deepened when he brought serious allegations against India in September 2023, for the first time accusing the Indian government's involvement in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Of course, it's been 16 months since that happened. No proof was given in those 16 months. And now, of course, we see, him tendering his resignation. My colleague Brian is with us on the broadcast to give us more on this. Brian, of course, as I was saying, 16 months ago, Justin Trudeau accused India of meddling and being involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. No proof given, and now this. What can you tell us?
Sorry, definitely. Trudeau's resignation also comes in the wake of the deteriorating ties with India, which even triggered by his controversial allegations in September 2023 of Indian involvement in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And even India definitely despises these claims as baseless, accusing Trudeau also and his government of pandering to the pro-Khalistani sympathizers for political gain. And even the fallout also saw both countries expelling diplomats and even recalling envoys. Even pro-Khalistani activities in Canada, including an attack on a Hindu temple near Toronto, further escalated the tensions. And also, despite multiple meetings, including one that happened in the G20, Canada failed to provide any, substantive, evidence supporting its allegation, and which even drew a lot of criticism, both domestically and internationally. Even Trudeau's perceived support for separatist, elements alienated many Canadians, tarnishing his leadership as well. And now, after he has resigned from his party leader post and also the prime minister, now definitely he's a caretaker prime minister. But now, yes, the Liberal Party rather, must now select a new leader that is capable of addressing internal divisions, restoring public confidence, and even tackling pressing economic and diplomatic issues. Now, the leading contenders also would include Dominic LeBlanc, who is the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and Finance. That is, even there is Melanie Joly, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, also known for her experience in international relations. There is Francois Philippe Champagne also, who is the Minister of Innovation with strong business background, and even Mark Carney, who is also, a former governor of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England with a reputation for financial expertise as well. And now with Canada heading to elections later this year, the next leader will face the monumental task also now of unifying the party, addressing economic challenges, the 25% tariffs, and also reshaping the country's global image. And after Trudeau's exit also marks the end of an era, but also signals the beginning of a transformative chapter that I feel all the Canadians are also hoping for in the upcoming Canadian politics. Savri.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for sharing all those details with us. Meanwhile, joining us this morning is Major General Sudhakarji, defense expert. We're also being joined by Mr. Manan Dwivedi, foreign affairs expert. A very good morning to the two of you, and thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX. Let me start off this conversation with Mr. Manan Dwivedi. And sir, I'd like to understand from you at this point of time, was Justin Trudeau's downfall inevitable? Was it something that was going to happen ultimately? What's your assessment on that front?
Thanks a lot for inviting me. The idea is that there happens to be a phrase in the public sphere in Canada and in the media in Canada, something which is called as the snowstorm walk. If we look at Justin Trudeau, he hasn't risen up on his own actually, but he's supposed to be a kind of a Nepo baby. His father, Elliot Poliver, he became the Prime Minister of Canada in 1984, and from then on he went on to reign over Canada for 3 consecutive terms. But in the 4th term, when he was thrown out for the last walk he took in a snowfall, while the snowfall was happening in Ottawa. So, that kind of a talk is doing the rounds about Trudeau too. That is he taking his snowfall walk while the snow flakes are falling on the lapels of his coat. I personally feel that Justin Trudeau miscalculated the Indian strength and went on to go into the dilemma that a nation's terrorist might be a freedom fighter for the other nation. and the blatant manner in which Jagmeet Singh of NDP, the National Democratic Party there, and the pro-Khalistan people and the forces or the political factions in Canada, how he has hobnobbed with them has earned him bad name. Apart from this, if we look into the last 3 terms of Trudeau, what we are going to find is that he's very ambitious, he's very audacious, and despite the comic persona which has been attached to him, the immature-ish wiener which has been attached to him, he happens to be a person who can really fight out a political crisis. If we go through the local Canadian reports, then we'll come to know that the first women and indigenous justice was appointed by him in 2013, and she went in later on. They both parted ways. The relationship suffered a lot, and the taint has always been on Trudeau that he is open to corrupt and nepotic practices, especially during this indigenous justices case. He went in there and he wanted the justice to hide Liberal Party's linkage with the law firm. So, there have been a couple of other such incidents which have shown that Trudeau is not free from corruption charges. He might be culpable as far as the electorate's decision is concerned, but still, Trudeau has a quaint characteristic of hitting back at his opponents. But if you talk about the opponents also, the Pierre Poilievre, who is the main person of the Conservative Party, he too skipped a dinner party with the Indian diaspora there because of the kind of antagonism and the bad blood which had been spread about the Indians, the Indians in Canada. So I would like to say that Trudeau might not survive this particular fall, because if we go by the statement of the New Brunswick member of Parliament, Wayne Long in Canada, he has gone on to say that this is enough and enough is enough, and the Liberal Party too. And he went on to contend that if a hidden poll is conducted right now within the confines of the Liberal Party, then 50 odd people would want him to move out of the leadership of the Liberal Party and the Prime Ministership of Canada, and 50 would be saying, okay, let's go ahead and have a relook at what Trudeau is doing, while some of them, the rest of them would be fence sitters. So I think his domestic policy has also been challenged by the bad performance of his government, the Trudeau government, as far as the taxation themes and the housing and the governance themes are concerned. And what we should not forget here is that Canada is a parliamentary model of democracy where it follows a brokerage model. Right. When we talk about the brokerage model, then we come to the conclusion or the hint that it is a multi-party system.
Okay,
as far as Canada is concerned.
Let me also get in a perspective from Major General Sudhakar ji on the broadcast. Sir, 16 months ago, Justin Trudeau picked a fight with the Indian government. He said that, well, India was involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, accused Home Minister Amit Shah of authorizing operations against Khalistanis, labelled India as a cyber adversary. After 16 months, do you think what's happened to him is poetic justice?
Asabri, good morning. Thank you very much for getting me to the show, and Happy New Year to you, everyone in the studio, as also the audience. And compliments to the very distinguished and esteemed co-panelists, Mr. Dwivedi. Yes, indeed, you put it rightly. I would say it is a justified poetic justice which has happened. A person who keeps on clamoring and making noise of rule of law turns out to be the primary violator of the rule of law, no matter, just for being so power hungry, like my co-panelist very nicely brought out, he has not come on his own. He has been mollycoddled. He doesn't know the finer and the complex aspects of politics. Today, as things stand in Canada, let me share with you my analysis as a student of geopolitics. Canada is not what India thought it to be, say 50, 60 years back. Not that it was any good. 1984 Kanishka thing actually, rings 85 Kanishka thing actually rings the bell in our head. We all know how it is. In my opinion, this is a society, this is a country which is started showing very prominent socio-economic fault line, despite being a leading economy, despite being listed in one of the developed countries in the world. Now, what are these? You see, like my co-panelist very rightly said, one man's terrorist cannot be other man's freedom fighter. You see, when there is a mismatch between the interpretation and the rule of law in the same on the same planet, then obviously the rule of law may be something to Canada and the rule of law may be something to India, which is the case. We are in 21st century. The threat of 20th century is no longer relevant and pertinent in 21st century. Sooner Canada realizes, better it is. Today, as you and me are discussing in the panel or talking in the morning show, there are a number of ships, Chinese ships around Canada. There are a number of ships and vessels of Russia which are in and around Canada. Now, they're not there for, for picnicking. They're there for their business. Today, if you see, despite being a leading economy in the world, they have got a very comfortable, I would say, forex reserve. GDP is doing good. And although the forex reserve has dropped very significantly, what is Canada going through? Until unless they realize, until unless a realization comes from the within. Do you know the indigenous population of Canada is just about 5%, 1.8 million out of 3.4 or whatever crores of people are there. Only 5%. Rest all are a mix of, it's a mixed bag of Chinese, Indians, Filipinos, Russians are there. So when you look at it, you have to see that the population composition or the HR component of a nation building is very diverse. And some of them are very inimical to the core national interest of Canada. Number two. Number two, when you talk of, there used to be large number of China towns. Today, as we are discussing, the Chinese population in Canada is touching almost about, internet shows around 1.7 million. My research says it's close to 2 million. So let's say it is between 1.7 to 2 million. What I'm trying to highlight is, in good old days, until the ban came through, they used to have 40, 50 China towns. These days, they have come down to some 8 or 10 of them. In Canada, I'm not talking about US. US has got a large number of China towns. Now, why am I highlighting? Every China town is going through an exercise of island of convenience. This is a new doctrine, new concept which Chinese have come off of late, about a year or 2 years back. What is the meaning of island of convenience? The meaning of island of convenience is to push in as many Han Chinese as possible, make sure that they get married to the females or the ladies of the host country, make sure that they acquire the land, make sure that they have the citizenship, and gradually they extend. They are the ambassadors of China, let me tell you. The philosophy, the ideology of authoritarian rule is gradually penetrated. Today, Canada is totally penetrated by a Chinese culture, Chinese society, Chinese value system, if we analyze deeper and deeper into the issue. Third thing I want to highlight is, militarily, is Canada well off? I don't think so. To save on time, let me give the perspective that it is because Canada is insecure, vulnerable to its internal human resources. Talk about, they are giving exile to people who are like LTT, people who killed Mujibur Rahman. They're on exile there. Our Khalistan group is also there, Nizar and Party. So such like people, it reminds us of the old days and the saying of Mrs. Clinton when she came to Pakistan that if you nurture snakes in your backyard, why should you be shocked and surprised if they bite you? They will definitely bite you, not your neighbor, always and every time. So same are the people who are going to threaten the very fabric of the constitutional democracy. Democracy is fine, but democracy without any boundaries, without any restrictions, they are definitely going to lead the nation to collapse. Today, Canada, that's why Donald Trump has been making very pointed offers. He's been saying it will be the 51st state of USA. Why don't you resign and join us in the 51st? I have started seeing a kind of a dream that sooner or later, whether it is Donald Trump or somebody else, if USA has to retain and sustain its supremacy as a superpower, given the fact that it is already a declining superpower, it has to guard its flanks. The flank is Canada. It is slowly, gradually falling into the axis of evil. When I
Right.
talk about axis of evil, the China, Russians, and a lot of inimical resources who were there, the law has to change. The law of Canada does not permit or prohibit such kind of people coming in. Instead, India has been constantly reminding, please kindly look within, introspect, carry out amendment, carry out change. We have been strategically patient as also tactically very, I am telling you, accommodating despite the idiosyncrasies of the system which is driving the kind of a misbehavior of a political leadership of
Absolutely,
a
sir.
leading economy. Back to you.
Absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank both our guests for joining us on the broadcast and sharing their perspectives with our viewers. On that note, we leave it there and we shift our focus to some breaking news coming in where US Congress